when I watched that interview, it made me think like, has he always thought this way, or is he just in a space? I feel like he's just in a different headspace now when it comes to creating albums. Because I'm curious to know if he kind of felt this way 10, 11, 12 years ago when he was, you know, constantly working, trying to make the album,
Dead and Hip Hop Conversations. Today we are talking about ScHoolboy Q and his podcast interview with BACKONFIGG. Today, as you can see, to my immediate right, I got Mr. Kenneth B. Inns. What it do?
What up?
To my left, Beezy 430. Gotta say the 430.
What up, Dom?
And to his left, Modest Media.
What's up, bro?
So this was a very interesting interview. There was quite a few things that ScHoolboy talked about that we're definitely going to get into. One of the first things that he talked about, you know, and the four of us that are on this stage right now, we like sports, right? And he referenced sports in a sense that he doesn't feel that hip hop is a competition. You know,
that was an interesting comment.
That was an interesting comment, and I agree and disagree. But obviously, we're going to give our takes. But ScHoolboy was talking about how hip hop is not a competition because he comes from a standpoint that his music, and he's obviously speaking for himself, is very personal. So I'm not trying to compare or to compete with your personal pains and traumas to make this music. You know, he's not here to compete against your own personal pains and traumas, which I 100% agree. However,
that's framing, but go ahead.
However, where I disagree is that it is competitive in a sense of stylistically and level of skill.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, he said it's not like LeBron versus Kobe trying to win a championship. I agree to a degree, but LeBron had a certain level of trauma and having to overcome to get to that point that he's at, right? So he's not competing with everybody else's trauma, but he's competing with the skill set at that level. You know what I'm saying? So when he was talking, I was thinking about, you know, when you see features, you know, we just recently did Mick Jenkins and he had JID on there. He had Freddie Gibbs on there. He had Benny the Butcher on there. And to me, those are guys that Mick Jenkins is competing with from a skill standpoint, not from a personal trauma. You know, you went through this, I went through that. My shit is tougher than yours. Nah, that's not where the competition, quote unquote, lies. It lies in the skill base and who did a better job on the beat. Do y'all agree, disagree?
Well, yeah, it's like that's why I said it was framing by ScHoolboy, which I agree with you. It makes sense from his perspective. It's like this isn't the trauma Olympics, so we're not doing that sort of thing. And he has a very valid point. I think he's right in that assessment. But yeah, man, it's just like when the way I grew up. You know, being the OG on the stage and growing up with this, it's always been about I'm gonna out-rap you. I'm a better MC than you. That whole Eminem killed Jay-Z on his own shit. Who's the control verse being better than Big Sean and everybody else is on there. It's always about who's the better MC, who has the better skill, the better bars, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, it is a competition from that standpoint. And that's why I disagree with him. And even though that's not the point he was making, he didn't say that. But yeah, from my perspective, it is a competition.
Like, at what point do you think it became that way from the inception, or just at some point it became that way? Like, was it the LL Cool, like Cool?
I think it started. I think it started to shift when hip hop skills started to improve and started doing different shit.
Do you think there? I think more so, and this is beyond my time, so correct me because I know I'm definitely going to be wrong. But when KRS came out with The Bridge Is Over, right, like, and people started taking direct shots at other people, that was competition.
I don't know if I ever really felt that in hip hop coming up. Just in certain moments, I felt like that, that it was a competition, and it was more so like a beef, more so than a all rap better than. It was just like, oh yeah, they're beefing. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's a competition thing. I think that's just, I thought it was real beef.
Yeah, no, Eric B and Rakim and EPMD, like they were taking shots at each other, but a lot of that was also about skill as well.
See, I'm from the South. I don't remember that. I don't remember like, oh, I'm
It was
a better
very subtle. Some of those shots.
It might have been subtle, but I didn't catch them like, oh, I'm a better MC. I always thought that was like a New York thing or whatever. Like, oh, I'm a better, like King of New York was always a thing. No one else was saying that. I think T.I. started saying King of the South.
Yeah.
But like, I never really heard anybody saying
because there wasn't a lot of that in the South. Because you just had, you know, when we're talking about around that time, you know, a couple of years later, you had
mainly it was just New York and West Coast that was dominating.
Yeah, Two Live Crew came on. They just wanted to party.
Yeah.
You know, but then eventually they had beef with
Snoop and Dr. Dre.
Tim Dog and all them cats.
Yeah, right.
Tim Dog,
But that was beef. That wasn't necessarily about skill.
Exactly.
But yeah, a lot of that stuff was up top.
Yeah.
And it was highly competitive about, you know, between one another. Because remember, they would be on the street, you know, rapping, battle rapping against each other.
Yeah, but see again, that's New York. I don't remember seeing that in like the South like that. I don't know if that was a West thing either, was it? I don't know.
I don't think at first it was. It was definitely a New York thing, but I think that the evolution of it was, you know, with Busta Rhymes getting on all the features, we started comparing artists on the same song.
Okay.
Right? Like let's not kid ourselves. When we heard Tupac and Bone, we was like, yo, who killed that? When we heard Biggie and Bone, it was like, who killed that? So we're pitting people against, you know, their peers and their contemporaries on the same songs. It's not an artist to artist thing. I think there is a certain level of competition. Like
There was an artist to artist thing.
For some of them. Well, here's the thing. So
I mean, it became, but this whole thing became part of the culture. Even it may not have been part of Southern culture off rip, but it definitely was part of
100%. And the tone was set by East Coast, right? Like I'm referencing when Busta Rhymes got his award. I can't remember what show it was, the BET Awards, and he got that Lifetime Achievement Award. And he was talking about how, you know, he was the weed man. So every time he went to the studio, you know, and then he started playing his shit, and all he would do was try to be like, I'm gonna out rap this person.
Again, we're still talking about New
But
York.
shit,
I understand.
but shit. I mean,
But that's where it started.
I can bring the South in too. With when they got up there and said the South got something to say.
At the source.
Yeah, because they were looked at as MCs that didn't have skill, so
Right,
they were
again.
trying to compete with them up top to show that they can rap just as good, if not better than them.
Right, but again, look where it's coming from. It's coming from up top. It's coming from New York, and like for the longest, like I don't think anybody's had spoken out about the New York kind of shitting on Southern rappers. I don't until that moment. That's why it was a very pivotal moment in hip hop. But that's what I'm saying, Ken. Like I don't remember it being a big competition thing growing up. I don't remember. I just liked who I like. I like this person. I like that person. I wasn't like who. We weren't talking about what's classic. And that wasn't like in our conversations. It was always just like, oh, I like this person and I like this person. It wasn't like, oh, I think this person is better per se. It's just like I liked who I liked.
Yeah, I think eventually it got to a point where we were, to Feefo's point, comparing MCs to one another, you know, as a group talking like we are.
Yeah.
But as far as the rappers were concerned among themselves, and then of course regionally it became, you know, a thing, then that's where we saw a lot of that. And I would like to believe that because of that filtered down to us as fans as well. You know, with them saying that, because then we were like, oh yeah, well shit, you know. So we would start to compare the MCs to one another. Especially when they were taking shots, then we would draw battle lines ourselves. It happened with Biggie and Pac.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. So that's when I first started being like, oh, I like these rappers better, or this rapper better than other rappers. It was Tupac influence. But before the Tupac influence, shit, I was just listening to whoever I liked. Like it didn't really, oh, I think they are better type of thing. It was just like, okay, they got their thing, and yeah. Like I said, the King of New York shit was a thing. Like, who's the better MC? I don't remember that in the South.
No,
I don't even remember that on the West.
No, it wasn't like that. But also, you know, the birthplace and the origin of hip hop is there. You know what I'm saying? So if it's gonna start somewhere, that's where it started. You know what I'm saying? It just trickled down to the rest of hip hop. But Beezy, you've been a little quiet, man. You feel no
I was
type of
about
way?
to come back to the ScHoolboy interview. So when I watched that interview, it made me think like, has he always thought this way, or is he just in a space? I feel like he's just in a different headspace now when it comes to creating albums. Because I'm curious to know if he kind of felt this way 10, 11, 12 years ago when he was, you know, constantly working, trying to make the albums. I know he mentioned Oxymoron, he mentioned some of his older albums, but I feel like he's in the space where he can kind of be like, yeah, let me wait and try to come up with some influences or life experiences to
he talked about that, right? You know, the next thing after the whole competition type of thing, he was talking about where he is in his own musical career, his own musical journey.
Yeah,
and
that's what made me think of that.
Yeah, you know, he was talking about how, you know, it's been 4 years since he's dropped, almost 5 years since he dropped the album.
Yep.
And, you know, the media and the quote unquote fans are saying, hey, you know, you need to drop every year and this, that. And he's like, no, your favorite rapper needs to drop every year. But ScHoolboy is at a point in his career now where it is more so about the artistry, right? Like, it's no longer about breaking him as an act, right? It's all about what he wants to do when he wants to do. And we've seen that is kind of the journey of rappers. When you're first getting put on, you drop a little bit more frequently, you are more features, you're exposing yourself to garner that fan base.
And he mentioned that too when he was talking about and making Crash Talk. He felt like that's why he said like why he titled it Crash Talk, because he was like, do I still have this like gangster mentality image or do I transition? It's like a crash at that point. And he was saying even after he made the album, he felt kind of empty, like even after he had made that. So, and that's crazy because
he said it sold.
He said that was
and that was his best selling. It moved like crazy. And I think a lot of us, with the exception of Ken, didn't really care for that album. That was the first time we like.
Yeah, really, I think his core fan base didn't particularly care for it, which is why I think he's like kind of on the fence with that album, because did he say it was his least introspective album? Is that what he said?
He said.
Yeah. But he said it did the best though, which in my mind I thought it would have been Blank Face, because you know that's still like
it was the most critically acclaimed album, but one of the ones that sold the least. So I think you know, part of what ScHoolboy is getting at is what is the balance of being super creative and being true to self versus transcending and trying to sell records and, you know, being what people want you to be versus who you really are.
Well, you know, I think B bring up a good point. Like, he's in a state of privilege where he can take the time in between albums now. Whereas, and I pulled up his discography, you know, just to look at the frequency, and it was back to back. It was
that's
2011.
That's why I brought that up.
2011, 2012. After 2012, 2 years in between, when you got Oxymoron in 2014, then another 2 years, Blank Face in 2016, and then 3 years in between those two when you got Crash Talk, and now we have 4. You're talking about like, now he's talking about like, I want these experiences to make these albums. But, you know, if I'm looking at the frequency in between, you know, like, I guess a lot of that shit was happening between 2011 2012, or he was referencing like stuff that happened all the way in the past to make those albums. And then in between 2012 and 2014, he had to kind of go through some shit to make the albums.
Being a father and all that stuff.
Losing Mac, that Mac Miller thing hurt him too.
Yep. So I think you're right. Like, when you're starting out, like, you have to be out there, man. Like, you have to be in people's faces. You can't take time in between.
You can't be a new MC like taking 5 years in between projects. Like, so that's why I asked, like, I wonder, was he thinking this, you know, 13 years ago? And also, it's another part, I don't know if it wasn't in that clip, but he had bigged up Kendrick a lot. How Kendrick kind of kept him motivated and stuff. And I don't know.
He saved his life.
So I don't know if whatever he was going through personally or whatever he was seeing Kendrick go through and Kendrick coming up with the life experience and talking about on his double album, I don't know if ScHoolboy got some type of inspiration from that or whatever, or maybe why that's why he was saying what he was saying. I don't know, because hearing him talk about Kendrick, I would just think like, well, maybe he kind of got some inspiration from that, which is why he probably was saying what he was saying in the interview.
So to provide a little bit more context to what B's talking about in terms of ScHoolboy saying that Kendrick saved his life, ScHoolboy started off as Kendrick's bodyguard. And from Kendrick's bodyguard, he then became his hype man. And the reason why he became his hype man was because Top and TDE was just gonna cut him. And he's like, nah, he's my hype man now. And then from there, what happened was every time Kendrick was in the studio with Dr. Dre, he was like, hey, pull up. And he said, ScHoolboy said that's how he got his Interscope deal, because Dr. Dre was like, yo, you dope as fuck too. And because of Dr. Dre, he got him hooked up with Jimmy Iovine, and he got the Interscope deal. And then that's how we got ScHoolboy, the rapper. You know what I'm saying? So if it wasn't for Kendrick and, you know, staying loyal and bringing him along, you know what I'm saying, who's to know what ScHoolboy was?
I thought it was interesting. Said they hadn't worked since Crash Talk.
Since Crash Talk, because Kendrick did all of the ad libs, and that was the last time they worked together.
And he said, but we still best friends. Like I was just like, wow, like you best friends with Kendrick, like you know what I'm saying. But you know, like, but you haven't worked with him since Crash Talk. Like that's kind of weird.
But it's also dope that, you know, it's a friendship.
music.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah, it's like we just homies, bro. Like it ain't anything more than that. Like I don't need you for my shit. You don't need me for your shit.
It's like he doing his own thing. I'm doing my own thing, and that's just it is what it is.
So my thing is, let's listen to him talk. And I think he hinted that there's an album on the way. It's like, what does this thing sound like? You know, is it introspective? Is it going to be a mix of both, like Crash Talk and introspective stuff? Like,
because what is he thinking as he's making his album after seeing, like you said, his least introspective album, but it did numbers, it did well. So is he like, should I give him that or should I go? Yeah, I see what you're saying, Ken.
Well, I think based off of what he was saying in the interview, it sounds like he wants to be more introspective. And then when he was also talking about Mac Miller, you know, I don't know, and this wasn't in this clip, but he had an interview with Charlemagne. And he said he started crying. He's like, that's the only time he was going to do that. But he played Crash Talk for Mac Miller. And then after that is when Mac Miller died. So again, just listen to what he's saying on this. It seems like a lot of those emotions and those things that he's lived through his life in this period of time is what he wants to put out. Because it just sounds like, and I think this is the reason why we all fell in love with ScHoolboy, is that he's real. Like he doesn't live behind a facade. Like even though it's a lot of gangster shit and some people glorify it and some people, you know, magnify it, you know, they might have sold a fucking dime bag and said, I'm pushing pounds. Like, no, like, but everything that ScHoolboy raps about, I feel is true. Like I knew he was a Hoover Crip. Like like I know that that's the life that he lived. It just sounds like in the interview that's the music that he wants to make because it kind of feeds him, like his emotion, his soul. And it feels like when he talked about Crash Talk, he was in a confused state. Like I don't, like he said he felt empty after that album. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. You know, I don't want to speak for ScHoolboy, but just my interpretation of that interview seems like he wants to get more into the introspection.
Maybe there's a lot of pressure.
Why do you think that, Ken?
Hey man, 4 years Crash Talk didn't hit like that, regardless of the sales. You know, you coming off the high of Blank Face, you put out Crash Talk, and you know it flopped among critics. You know, so now it's like shit. Well, y'all didn't really fuck with this, even though it sold well. What the fuck am I gonna make now? That's a lot of pressure, bro.
Do you think the
to live up to the hey man, pressure bust pipes, bro. So you were like, hey man, you know, hey maybe I just need to, you know, take some time in between.
That's what he was saying.
I'm just saying, you know,
man, you know.
So you feel like that about Kendrick too?
I think Kendrick be under pressure as well.
I think
really,
yeah, I do. I mean, his albums are so good. Like I feel like he's intentional. He wants to create something better than the
Kendrick
last.
has to tap into a different sort of thing to meet. I'm with you, Rod. To meet what he did before. ScHoolboy went in a different direction with Crash Talk instead of following up Blank Face with something in a very similar lane.
So this is why I disagree with y'all saying that Kendrick is under pressure.
Okay.
Because
he's under more pressure now.
A little bit, just because he ventured out on his own. But from a music perspective, right, I don't think he's under more pressure because if it was, then he would just appeal to the masses like he did with Damn.
It's pressure being on top, bro. To keep up with that.
I'm not saying that it's not.
Now you on your own imprint now?
I get that aspect. No. That aspect of being on your own, that's pressure. 100% because you don't have the machine that you helped build. I 100%, there's pressure from that perspective. But from a music creative perspective, I don't think that Kendrick operates, at least he doesn't make me feel like he's under pressure because he creates the music he wants to, regardless of whatever the fan base is going to say. Because if he wanted to create something for the fans, I don't know if this was the album to do that. This was more therapy and 100% introspection. This was not a popular album. This is not something that you would play in the clubs. It's not something you bump in the whip. But around the room, y'all feel like ScHoolboy's under pressure?
I don't know if pressure's the right word because he has Crash Talk. I think he can only go up from there personally. Not and I hate to talk about it like that, but it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't blank face.
He know what it is too.
Yeah. I think he does too. Yeah, based on the interview, he knows. Yeah, but because I'm a ScHoolboy fan. I love ScHoolboy. So no, I don't know if it's pressure per se. I think it's just, you know, hopefully it's not. Hopefully he knows what he wants to make. He makes it, and you know, if people accept it, they accept it. If they don't, they don't. I hope he's there.
Listening to this interview, I just want him to make the music he wants to make. You know, and that.
So you don't feel like he did that with Crash Talk?
Nah. I don't feel that was all him. I think, you know, I'm taking
even down to the features and stuff. Like,
I don't feel like that was him. I'm taking him at face value when he said that he felt empty after creating that, and he was in a weird space. He's super dad. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's not this super gangster thug guy anymore. So it's like
he's a soccer
where do you
dad.
go? Yes. You know what I'm saying?
I hope he doesn't do that.
Yeah, 100%. But I think it's very interesting to find that balance, and I think that's where the creativity comes in, and that's where the skill of competition that we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? I think everybody on the stage feels that ScHoolboy's level of skill is A1, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So where does he go? I don't know.
Based off that interview, that whole interview, I think it can be some pressure because it's been what 4 or 5 years since
Going on 5?
Yeah, since he dropped. You know, and it's, you know, of course, there's a whole bunch of talk going around TDE, like, oh man, what's happening with this label? Like, yeah, I think it's some pressure. I think it's definitely some pressure. I think it's definitely some pressure for him to try to kind of make an album and make that shit be dope as hell and have, you know, all this core fan base like love it again. You know what I'm saying? I definitely think it's some pressure.
I feel like Ab-Soul had more pressure, but he delivered though.
Yeah, he did, and it's crazy that nobody's talking about that.
Yeah, he delivered. Shit, ScHoolboy, you up next.
Yeah.
So that could be pressure too.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Ab-Soul was up. He had pressure, then he delivered.
It's
He
so
might be
much,
trying to
man.
hedge, bro.
So let me ask another TDE member. Do you feel J-Rock had pressure?
I feel like J-Rock's in a like a little balanced space. Like, it don't really one way or another. Because he hasn't, I don't know. He just hasn't broke like that, except that win-win-win song. Yeah. But other than that, I think he's good. He's good.
J-Rock straight.
Yeah, J-Rock straight.
Bro.
Yeah, I feel J-Rock has been outside of Kendrick, and obviously Kendrick's no longer on TDE, but J-Rock
he kind of flies under the radar.
100%.
Yeah.
Ab has had ups and downs, and ScHoolboy's had nothing but ups until Crash Talk. And then now we're questioning. I agree with Rod and B that ScHoolboy is under pressure.
I didn't say that.
Yeah,
So
he
you
didn't.
don't feel
He
he's under
don't.
pressure?
He don't.
Yeah, I don't feel like he is.
I think he's under pressure more so from a TDE standpoint than he is personally. You know, I think with the album Crash Talk, it is what it is. It's sold, but it wasn't who he was. But I definitely think with TDE, you know, kind of floundering right now. Like, what is the direction? You lost your biggest artist. It's the truth. Is it not the truth? The direction is not clear right now, and I think that what ScHoolboy does says a lot about where TDE is.
ScHoolboy got to be the guy now. But he said that, you know, they doing some different things with Doechii and this other cat they got. I don't know his name.
We shall see.
SZA.
Did he say SZA?
Oh yeah, he's straight with SZA and Doechii. Man, they keep selling this Doechii person, bro. But I get you. You know.
I think he'll be all right.
Yeah. I think he's been away. He done cooked up some stuff. He gonna drop some heat. And then he's gonna be gone for another 6 years this time.
You stupid.
Man, that's
Just add another year or two, huh? Add another year or two from the previous one.
Cam.
But look, let me talk to the people real quick. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching another Than a Hip Hop Conversation. You already know the comment section is the second conversation. So, how do you feel about artists in competition? Is it a thing? Should it be a thing? Is it not a thing? Also, should established artists take 3+ years to come out with another project, or should they be dropping like Griselda damn near every year, or multiple projects, you know, per year? How do you feel? What do you think? Let us hear it in the comment section. We out. Peace.